Welcome, everyone. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013. An announcement that this meeting is being recorded. I would like to take a moment of appreciation before we start for our brave servicemen and women that are serving in Afghanistan. Thank you. We've got a number of items on the agenda tonight. First up, in a few minutes, we're going to have a public hearing and vote on the talking about the Kenny property, Redgate Farm purchase. We've got an appointment at 7:20 with the Medfield Cultural Council, and at 7:30 we do have a presentation for the plan for 353, 355 Main Street in Medfield, the Clark Tavern. We have a number of action items to take care of. We have some licenses and permits to approve, and then a few other things, some issues dealing with the Medfield State Hospital as we make some progress there. So we'll get started with the first item on our agenda tonight, which is a public hearing and a vote regarding exercising of the town's general laws, Chapter 61, Section 8, First Refusal Option regarding the land of Robin Kenny, trustees of Red Farm Realty Trust, and we're containing approximately 31 acres on Foundry and Philip St for a purchase price of $1,385,000. And our town council, Mark Sorrell, is going to speak.
This is a culmination of a statutory process that I've reviewed with you before, and we are actually going above and beyond what, in my opinion, is required. The statute speaks of a public hearing and references the old open meeting law. So it really is only required that you do this in a public session. However, we've gone the extra step, had a legal notice placed in the Medfield Press, and set it up as a public hearing. So I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that you would declare the public hearing open, take any comments, and when you feel that it's appropriate, then close the hearing and take whatever action you deem is appropriate. I have prepared a draft order for you if you choose to exercise the town's rights, and that order should be entered in the record and executed tonight and notarized so that I can take the next steps.
Okay. All right, so I guess the first order of business then, as our town council indicated, was that we would open it for any comments that the public had. So does anyone have any issues regarding the town's proposed purchase of the Kenny property? Mr. Harney? Yeah.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, the central query is, what's the sufficient reason for this? This doesn't seem to have been the process in the past, as the town council just said. So you must have a reason for it.
Maybe town council can kind of express that maybe a little bit again.
To be perfectly honest, I don't recall our ever actually formally exercising rights under a scenario like this, where we follow the statutory process. We acquired land, but as far as exercising a right of first refusal when there was a purchase and sales agreement between a landowner and a third party, I don't recall that during my tenure. So we're simply following through the process.
Yeah. Okay, Council, it does seem remarkable, though, that you're going the extra mile on this. It suggests that there is some trouble.
It's just the advertisement is going extra miles.
The statute is ambiguous. It's poorly worded. It was revised, and it's still poorly worded. And as I said, it talks about a public hearing, but it doesn't reference statutory authority for that, and because of that ambiguity, and just out of a sense of caution that we dot our I's and cross our T's, I want to ensure that we follow the entire statutory process so that it's not going to be subject to challenge at a later date.
And Mr. Harney, as I understand it, the only difference between what we've done and what council is saying is the other procedure is just we published a notice in the newspaper.
Right,
That's
it could
the
have
only
just been an
difference, I think.
agenda item, and you could just take it up and do it.
Well, Mr. Peterson, I'm sure you take my point that this seems to be a remarkable exercise here, and the fact that you had executive sessions and leading up to this, it just suggests to the community that there's something going on.
There certainly were executive sessions.
Okay.
As I understand it, only 22 acres are covered under Chapter 61, is that correct?
Yes.
And we're acquiring 31 acres. Why and how are we doing the extra 9 acres?
It was offered to us by the seller.
Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it's under 61 or not?
The offer was made to the town to match the purchase and sales agreement that the owners had with developers. The town meeting chose to authorize the selectmen to respond fully to the offer that was made from the seller. And that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, I don't see we have any other comments here. I guess the next order of business is then, what do we need to do then?
Close the hearing.
Pete, would you like to make a motion to close the hearing?
I would move that we close the hearing at this point then.
second that.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Thank you.
And now, you can determine what it is you want to do, and we can proceed from there.
Okay. So do we need to I guess we propose to make a motion then to move forward with the purchase of the property.
Well,
as been-
Evelyn has the copies
Yeah.
of the order, which ought to be read into the record.
Okay, good, all right, okay, right there.
I guess they're in front of you, Mark.
Okay,
Actually, let me explain.
Yeah.
If you choose to exercise the town's
yep.
right,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll vote the order, and you also approve the purchase and sales agreement, which I've prepared, which we can talk about now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will take the order to the registry and record it, the Registry of Deeds in Dedham. And I'll also deliver copies of the order, the purchase and sales agreement, and a check for a deposit to the attorney for the Realty Trust.
So is it, so not knowing how to do all this stuff and stuff like that, do we need to then to read this entire order into the public record?
I
that
think
you
so.
Proposed? Okay, stuff like that, all right. And is there, any of us, should I be reading it, or should the clerk be reading it, or does it matter and stuff like that?
Well, I would, if you've each had a chance to review the order,
Mm-hmm.
then I would move to adopt the order.
Okay.
And then with that motion there, adopt the order and
And then we can go ahead and then I'll read the.
read it
too.
and vote on it.
Okay, all right. So I guess, Pete, if you'd like to make a motion to
I would
adopt that
move,
order.
I would move in accordance with that we adopt the order.
Okay.
That's presented to us here.
Okay, Richard?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye, excellent, all right. All right, we've got a order of the Town of Medfield Board of Selectmen. They are exercising the town's general laws, Chapter 61, Section 8, First Refusal Option regarding land of Robin Kenny et al., trustees of Redgate Farm Realty Trust, containing approximately 31 acres on Foundry and Philip Street. Title reference is Parcel B, Plan Book 603, page 7, and Deed Book 28039, page 347. Whereas Robin Kenny, James W. Kenny, and Brenda A. Kenny are the trustees of the Redgate Farm Realty Trust under Declaration of Trust dated July 10th, 2010, recorded at Norfolk County Registry of Deeds in Book 28039 at page 334, and as such are title holders of record herein after landowners of a parcel of land consisting of approximately 31 acres located on Foundry and Philip Street, shown as Parcel B, on a plan of land recorded at Norfolk County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 603, page 7, and being a portion of land described in a deed recorded in Book 28039 at page 347, said land also being shown on Medfield Board of Assessors maps, map 39, lot 33, hereinafter Parcel B. And whereas landowners have placed a portion of Parcel B under the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 61 as forest lands, and whereas General Laws, Chapter 61, Section 8 provides that in the event of an intended sale, a municipality has a first refusal option to meet a bona fide offer to purchase the land placed under the statute. And whereas landowners gave written notice to the town of Medfield of their intention to sell land, including Parcel B, which was received by the town on August 28, 2013, and landowners gave an amended written notice to town of their intention to sell, which was received by town on September 23, 2013, and whereas voters at a special town meeting held on October 7, 2013, voted to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire Parcel B and to exercise town's first refusal option for a total acquisition price, including expenses, of $1,400,000 for municipal purposes limited to open space and passive recreation, and to appropriate said sum and to borrow to meet said appropriation subject to voter approval of a debt exclusion pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, and whereas voters at a special election held on October 21st, 2013 approved said debt exclusion, and whereas the Medfield Board of Selectmen has this date held a public hearing in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 61, Section 8. Now, therefore, the Medfield Board of Selectmen, having been duly authorized to act on behalf by the town, orders that, number one, the town of Medfield does hereby exercise its first refusal option to purchase a parcel of land consisting of approximately 31 acres located on Foundry and Philip Street, shown as Parcel B, on a plan of land recorded at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds and Plan Book 603, page 7, and being a portion of land described in a deed recorded in Book 28039 at page 347. Said land also being shown on Medfield Board of Assessors maps, map 39, lot 33, for the purchase price of $1,385,000. Number two, directs that a copy of this order be mailed to Robin Kenny, James W. Kenny, and Brenda A. Kenny as trustees of Redgate Farm Realty, landowners, by certified mail as notice of town's exercise, together with a copy of town's proposed purchase and sales agreement described in the next paragraph, and that an attested copy of this order also be recorded at Norfolk Registry of Deeds, all as provided in General Laws, Chapter 61, Section 8. Number three, approves the proposed purchase and sales agreement for town's purchase of Parcel B from landowners, and directs that a copy accompany the notice to landowners of town's exercise of its first refusal option as provided in General Laws, Chapter 61A, Section 8. Number four.
That's a typo, it should be 61, I'm sorry.
61, yeah, not the A. Yep, Chapter 61, yep. Number four, authorizes and directs the town administrator in consultation with the town council to negotiate any revisions to the terms and conditions of the purchase and sales agreement with landowners for Board of Selectmen's final review, approval, and execution, and further authorizes the town administrator to execute any other documents and to take any and all other action necessary to consummate town's purchase of Parcel B. And so voted this third day of December 2013 by the Town of Medfield Board of Selectmen. Excellent. All right.
So, before you actually vote that, is there any question on the purchase and sales agreement? Basically, it's required that it have substantially the terms and conditions that, in other words, we have to substantially match the terms and conditions of the original proposed purchase, which included a $40,000 deposit. Normally, we wouldn't make any kind of a deposit when we were making a land purchase, but because of this scenario, we're doing that. The statute provides for a closing 90 days after the sellers receive the P&S, so I've chosen a date in late February. Otherwise, it's fairly standard legal boilerplate that Pete would be familiar with in terms of the right to have clear title and things like that.
Great. All right. I have no questions. Richard, no questions? Pete?
No, we're going to see the P&S eventually, I assume.
It's here,
It's right here.
Oh.
because we have to tender it with this, so
Yep.
this is
Okay.
why, if there's any questions, because you're going to have to sign the P&S tonight as well.
We'll take care of that. All right. So would you like to, make a motion, that we vote to sign?
Vote the order that
Vote
you
the
just
order and
read.
sign this order, yep.
I would move that we adopt the order just, that you just read so eloquently.
Richard, second? All in favor?
Yep.
Good. All right.
So we also vote to sign the purchase and sales agreement as part of that, so before you leave tonight, I need you to sign, and Evelyn will notarize multiple copies of the order and 4 copies of the purchase and sales agreement.
I would then move that we sign the attached purchase and sale agreement.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
Yep.
Good, excellent. Thank you.
Could I, Mr. Chairman, just go back to the issue that Mr. Harney raised a moment ago about the fact that there have been executive sessions about this? And I think that all of us sitting up here would like to talk about that and explain that, but I think that we're precluded from doing that because of the reasons for the executive session. And so that,
Let me just, without getting into that, indicate that the chapter statutes, even with the revisions, as I've indicated, are poorly written. They talk about the Board of Selectmen exercising the right of first refusal or the first option right on behalf of the town. However, obviously, the Board of Selectmen is not the appropriating authority in the town. So for them, if you read the statute and apply it literally, you could start with that process. The Board of Selectmen could exercise rights on behalf of the town, and you'd submit a purchase and sales agreement subject to town meeting appropriation at a later date. We went through the process the other way around. We took it to the townspeople with the Board of Selectmen's recommendation to determine what the townspeople's will was. And so now we're coming back at the very last to the Board of Selectmen. So it would not have been unusual, and in fact, it's not unusual to have executive sessions for real estate acquisition at an early stage. But the way this developed, it basically developed opposite the way if we were simply acquiring a piece of land that we had simply a one-on-one negotiation.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to trouble the process as I understand it, okay? But it's clear, we have the proponent for the developer sitting to my left. The town understood that this was going to go smoothly from the time of town meeting. There are many individuals in town who worked very hard, spent their time, talents, coin, to see that this got through in the resounding way that it did. So, you know, it seems to me that openness with the community is the best way to get support from the community. You know, and if there's going to be costs involved going down the road, and the community is kept in the dark at this juncture, that is not hopeful. So that, you know, I understand, I believe having sat there for 6 years, I understand your need for keeping this perhaps in confidence. But I would urge that at the earliest opportunity that the town be made aware of what problems you are facing. Because you do need the support of the community. You will, I'm sure, get it. That was very evident at town meeting. But you know, the closed society is the enemy of the people. So, and the support that you're going to need is going to require that the people have confidence in what is going on. So.
absolutely. And I think that we're under an obligation, as soon as the reason for the executive session is determined to be over, that we're under an obligation, actually, to produce the minutes of the executive session and to make it a public record.
Yeah, no, I have full confidence in the board, and I'm sure you're convinced that you need to do what you're doing. But it is a concern. Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, John. All righty. Our next appointment at 7:20 is, I believe, is Susan Parker. I think is going to chat with us a little bit about the Medfield Cultural Council.
I'm Susan Parker, Flintlock Lane in Medfield, and I'm representing, as you know, the Cultural Council tonight. And there are a number of other people here who are supporting this effort, and I appreciate every face I see. Thank you. I know that Jean Mineo, the council chair, has provided you with some background material, and I'll just provide a brief overview. The council's here tonight to explain a bit about what we do and to ask you to help us do more of it by increasing our funding base. I've got a folder of letters here from individuals and organizations who have benefited from the Cultural Council's grants in the past. And one of these is from Jesse Green, who provided a program at Memorial School. One is from Rob Gregg of the Vine Lake Preservation Trust. And I was reading these and I thought, talk about a broad base.
Yeah.
It's really unusual that we can offer support that begins with young children and goes beyond the grave.
Yeah.
Okay, so since 1982, the state has been encouraging the arts in Massachusetts cities and towns by providing funding for the local cultural councils to distribute, according to established guidelines. Right now, Medfield receives the minimum allocation of $4,250 a year, and individuals and organizations who are interested in arts funding submit applications to the council, and the council studies these applications in view of both state and local guidelines. This year, the proposed projects were an exciting group, including, among others, a variety of concerts, blues, swing, jazz, and more, experiences in the sciences, opportunities for young writers, original musical theater, Shakespearean performances, and a program connected with the Vine Lake Cemetery. Of the 17 possibilities, we were able to fund 7 of the proposals, all of which will directly benefit Medfield, but we wish that we could have answered yes more often. We find that this sense of frustration that we're unable to do more for the Medfield community in terms of these programs is a recurrent topic as we make these hard decisions year after year. In thinking about this, we've learned that many other communities at our funding level, the lowest the state provides, have increased their community support by adding municipal funding. And this is what we hope can happen in Medfield, that the town will support our request to match our allocation. In an effort to understand how best to put this request into action, Jean Mineo met with Michael Sullivan and talked with him about how to proceed. Based on that conversation, the Medfield Cultural Council tonight asks that the selectmen consider our request that this funding be a selectmen's committee allocation in the amount of $4,250. Thank you. I'll just stand here in case anybody wants to ask me a question.
So Michael, you're talking about maybe adding it to the selectmen's budget as a proposal for this year?
Well, when Jean asked me what methods could be
Yeah.
achieved, and I suggested that one way was to put a special warrant article in to
Okay.
appropriate the funds.
Okay.
Another way is the selectmen have a line item in their budget for selectmen's committees.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you could put it as a line, add it to your line item in your
Yeah.
budget. Those are options, either one of
Okay.
which would
Yeah.
work, so.
Yeah. Seems like that would be an easier thing to do, obviously, than drafting a whole special warrant article for four.
Yeah, the only thing, sometimes when an item is new, it's the
Yeah.
first time, you like to put it in a separate article, just so the
people-
town has a chance to consider it as a separate item,
Mhm.
and then eventually incorporate it into a budget when it becomes a routine appropriation.
Mhm.
So the option of putting it in as a special warrant article would be to draw attention to it so that the town would get to consider it as a new item in the town expenditures.
Mhm, mhm.
So,
Is there any disadvantage of putting in the selectmen's as opposed to a warrant article?
yes, you'll exceed your 2.5% allowed budget increase
Okay. So we
by
want-
quite a bit, I would imagine.
I
We
know,
want
our
to
budget's
exceed
like
it in
about
another way.
$2.
So,
So there's no.
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah.
so
Yeah. Pete, did you have any questions at all?
I don't.
Really-
I guess, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think that we get a lot of bang for our buck out of the money that we spend through the Cultural Council already. I was fascinated to see the list that Jean gave us of where the grants had gone in the past for the last 5 years or so, and it's just wonderful, I think, to have those things happen in town and get the support. And I think that when you look at the things that have been funded, they're all things that really add to the quality of life in town. And so that for $4,250, I think we can
we
add
can
substantially
find
to the quality of life in the town, and I think it makes a lot of sense to do.
fit that in. So did you make sense too? Yeah.
The other thing is, we've been working very hard trying to build the downtown area and the cultural, the work that you people have been doing adds to that. It brings people into the downtown, it helps the
Yes.
business community. It's one piece that makes the growing area that we have downtown in Medfield alive and vibrant, and brings people in there, brings business in there. And I think you've seen a number of improvements beginning to take shape. So it's not only just on the surface as a cultural event, but it's also have a ricochet effect of helping business and the community in general. So
Yeah.
I certainly would
Yeah.
second that.
Yeah, so I think we should certainly, I think we all kind of in agreement that we can figure out a way to get the money in, and we'll just figure out what the appropriate way to do it.
Wonderful. Very good news, and let us know if there's anything more. you
Okay,
want.
good. Thanks, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda for meetings tonight is we have a presentation of a proposed plan for the Clark Tavern, and I know Attorney Ted Cannon is here. I see him in the background, so come on up whenever you're ready. Hey, Ted. Evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the time tonight. I'm here with John and Michelle Leonard, managers of JML Group LLC, who are the applicants before the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals for a project to preserve, restore, and turn Clark's Tavern into a operating tavern, bed and breakfast, restaurant type facility. So we've been trying for a little bit to get before this board, just to bring you up to speed, give you an overview of the project in general terms. We
Yeah.
have, for those that are interested, our next planning board hearing is the 16th at 8 o'clock. That's a Monday night. And then our next zoning board of appeals meeting is the 18th at 7:30. So we have those on the horizon. So without further ado, I'd like to have John and Michelle give you a general overview of the project.
Great, good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm Michelle Leonard, and I'm speaking on behalf of JML Holdings, which is a business owned by my husband, John, and myself. And what we wanted to do tonight, as Ted said, is we really wanted to take the opportunity to come formally talk with this board about our plan for the proposed changes to the Clark Tavern. And I know that over the course of the last several months, there's been a lot of discussion around it. There's been a lot of things flying around. So we thought it would be a good opportunity just to come and talk in general, and then take any questions that you might have from that.
Sure.
And so what I thought might be helpful for those of you who might not know our story yet is to maybe talk with you just a little bit about who we are and why we're undertaking this particular project. As I said, my husband John and I have been Medfield residents for 10 years. We live in a house on High Street, and it's also an antique home. So we have a love for history, a love for antiques, and about a year ago, I guess it was about this time, maybe a couple months later, over the New Year's weekend, I happened across an article that Richard DeSorga had written in the Hometown Weekly about the Clark Tavern property that was for sale. And so what I would say is, for the past couple of years, I had been looking at different properties for a longer-term plan to open a bed and breakfast somewhere. We own a summer home up in Rockport, Massachusetts, so we had looked there and had looked at a couple of different things, but for a lot of different reasons, it just didn't make sense. We have 2 young children that attend school here, and so it just didn't seem like the right thing at the right time. But when I saw this article about this historic building that was located in town, that, you know, people were trying to decide what to do with it, and hopefully not to have it be demolished, I thought, well, why don't I go take a look at that just to see what it was. So we happened to go over, I think we actually went on New Year's Eve, as a matter of fact, and we went through it the first time, and I'd never been in it before, even though I'd lived here for 10 years, we had never been in it before. And during the course of that visit, really found it to be a wonderful piece of property. It's a home that has a lot of energy in it. Obviously, it's in a great state of disrepair at this point in time, but you could see that it could be a really great place for people to spend time. So we took a tour, we went home, and I told my husband that I thought it looked like an opportunity maybe that we could convert it into something. And he said, "Are you kidding me?" So for those of you who may have been in there, you would understand that it's not a coat of paint that you need to take care of. It's a lot of everything there. So after visiting it several more times, I was able to get the vision going. And so what we really wanted to take an opportunity to do was to restore the tavern back to what it was originally. And it was, in revolutionary times, it was a meeting place. And it was a place where the militia gathered. It was a place where, people brought their families to eat, to have celebrations. There's what they call a dance hall. We call it a function hall maybe now, but a dance hall there that had lots of different activities and things like that. So what we hope to do is to convert it back to what it was before. And so we would be interested in operating a small tavern, bed and breakfast, and a function space where people can come to gather to have celebrations with their family. So we really felt like it was an opportunity to restore this historic building into something that it had previously been, which would also offer a place for people in Medfield and surrounding communities to spend time in. And so what we have here tonight is just a picture of the proposed plans. Obviously, we still have many steps to go through to be able to get approval to do different things here. But this will show the outside of the building. And as you can see this is a side view. And let me just take it from the street. So if you were going down 109, this would be the front view. And so what we were trying to accomplish here is to have something that definitely fit into the surrounding community. Obviously, it's right on 109. There are other old homes in the vicinity. We wanted it to look residential and to look like it would fit into the community. And so that's why, basically, I think if you can look at this, you can see that it definitely looks like a house. And so we have, over the time since we purchased the building in May, we've had the opportunity to talk to many different people in the community and have received a lot of support from people that are interested from a historic perspective in the building. We have had a person that came over to do metal detecting and has found, quite a few artifacts on the ground. A coin called a Spanish cob from potentially the 1600s. We found a badge from the Medfield Cornet Band that I think that they said probably came from about the 1800s. And I guess somewhere it's documented that they did a concert there at some point. So we found that along with some, other coins and, various things there. We also, through the help of Cheryl O'Malley from the Dwight Derby House, we had some people come over from Oxford to do dendrochronology on the building, so we can find out even more about the historical significance and how old the building is. It's a really good example of post and beam construction. We've had several engineers go through because we had to check to make sure that we would be able to do the things that we needed to do. And they've been really impressed with what the inside of the house looks like and how good the structure is, even for its age. So we're looking forward to being able to move ahead with this particular project. It will be a place where we hope that people will be able to go to gather with their friends and family. As I said, we hope to have a small inn, so you would be able to have people stay there if they're visiting people in Medfield, because right now there's really no place else that you can do that in town. Mm-hmm. So a community place, intimate. There's been some speculation about what we're trying to do, and I know that some people are concerned that there's a tavern, and so when you think about the word tavern, I think it connotes different things to different people. And so maybe tavern to some people means a bar. We're thinking of a tavern as meaning a gathering place where people can eat. Maybe they have a glass of wine, but we're not looking to open a bar. We're looking to open a place where people can come and have fellowship with the people that they care about. So that's what we are. What I would say we're not, as I said, trying to be a bar. We're not a sports bar. I think, somebody had said at one point that they thought maybe this would be a 20-something sports bar. If you look at it, it clearly doesn't look like a sports bar. And, that's not the type of establishment that we're trying to put together. So, this is what it would look like from the front. This would go down the side. So this side actually, faces the east side of the building. And so as you can see here, it's just one entranceway. So even from the side, we tried to make it, look more like a house as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as Ted said, we have our formal meetings with the planning board and the ZBA coming up later this month. And we just wanted to make sure that we formally talk with you about what the plan has been, because we hadn't had the opportunity to do that before. We've, had people in to visit and, look around and ask questions, and would encourage anybody that has any questions of us to contact us. Be more than happy to take you through the building, talk more specifically about the plans, and go from there.
Excellent. That's good. Questions? Pete, did you have any questions?
I did. I have a lot of questions, actually, because I read the same article that Richard wrote, and I have the same interest in old buildings that you mentioned. And I'm very hopeful that the building gets saved and gets some use. But I'm also aware, well, let me just start with the fact that as the selectmen, I don't think that we actually have any official role in this.
No.
We don't have any decision-making authority, maybe over a common victualer's license or something of that sort. But in terms of whether or not you can do your use, we don't really have any authority. So it's just sort of an informational thing for us, and a curiosity thing for me to ask a couple questions. We have gotten a lot of letters sent to us. You were on our docket once before, and a couple weeks ago, and at that point, I got a stack of letters, and so I'd like to ask you some of the questions that are raised in these, actually. And maybe I'd start with my own personal question. You mentioned doing the dendronology of the. Did you actually find out how old the beams are?
We haven't yet. They
Oh,
just
okay,
did
so
it
you're-
several weeks ago, and so
Okay.
they said it would take a couple of months to get it back.
And when you say Oxford, that's Oxford, England?
Yes.
Person comes over, they must come over not just to do the Clark Tavern, but they must.
Other places,
riding
they
the
were
circuit.
doing projects. I think they actually were doing some projects down in Newport.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then after here, they went to Washington DC and the Virginia area.
Wow, good.
Yeah, so I think they did the dendrochronology from the Peak House and also the Dwight Derby House as
Okay,
well,
good.
which is
Oh,
how
that's great.
that's how we found out about it. And one of the things that he had mentioned to us is because they've done that work in other places in Medfield, they can kind of cross-reference things, and it would actually help them identify even more information than they might have if they
Yeah.
didn't have the other specimens.
I see to go with, yeah.
So, let me just start by saying that I see this as sort of a Hobson's choice. It's to have the building reused is a great result for the building and for the town. Having the building reused as a commercial establishment is not a great result for the neighbors, and that's what they have indicated to us in their communication with us. So that, and I hope that you guys can work that out with the neighbors as
We hope so.
as best as possible. But let me just ask some of these questions that are raised in these communications. Donald Cohen and Deborah Marvel asked, they say the business is just much too large. And they use the figure of 160 people coming and going. Is that the capacity?
No, so the capacity would be a maximum of 90. And there was some confusion at a previous meeting about the number of seats based on some working drawings that we had. We were looking at how many people could you fit in the function hall versus the tavern, not expecting that you would have it full at all times.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But, so that was a point of confusion, which we definitely will clear up when we go back to the planning board.
Okay.
But, you know, I understand the concern about the 160, but, so it's 90.
Okay. And, well, I guess I've looked at the plans that were in the planning board office, and what struck me was that the house and the parking basically cover the site, is the way that I saw it. I didn't study them, but that was just my sort of general reaction when I looked at it. It looked like there wasn't a lot of landscaping beyond the parking lot and the house itself.
Well, I would say, I don't know whether it showed it appropriately in the drawing. One of the things that we actually did as we were starting this project is we had a couple of different plans. One of the first plans came back to us exactly like what you said, where it looked like it was a big parking lot and a building. That's not at all the look that we're going for, that we would want to be a part of. So hopefully this will show you a little bit more specifically about some of the landscaping, both in the front, along the side, and then as a buffer zone between our property and the property next to us. And then there also is, there's landscaping between us and the Peak House as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we would definitely want to make sure that it looked nice like that, and it wasn't just a parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and you have to kind of walk a fine line, because you want to have the parking be off-street if it's going to be parking there, and because Main Street is not a great place to be parking to go in and out of a business.
Yeah, so the plan does not include on-street parking at all. In fact, that was one of the concerns, and we want to make sure that does not happen. We would not be supportive of the on-street parking for all the reasons that people have said.
Oh, okay. So the way that you're saying that, would you then want, bless you, would you then want the, because there is on-street parking there now, so that unless the town prohibits on-street parking, people can park on-street, basically, but I guess that's something you could work out with the planning board and the ZBA.
So I don't know how that would, from a legal perspective, how that works.
I think the selectmen are in charge of declaring no parking zones, so that if we were asked, then we'd have to consider it.
That we're allowed to have, so I don't know about
Yeah,
that.
the parking was designed to meet the zoning requirements. So, it's not excessive, it's not less than would be desired, 'cause you don't want to have less than what's required, because then you're encouraging people to park
on the street.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it does meet the zoning, and that was the goal, was to meet the requirements of the bylaw.
Oh, okay, so so that the parking is what our zoning, what our town has decided is appropriate for this use then? Okay,
Yeah,
well, that's encouraging.
and also, the way the parking lot looks, as you mentioned, one of the questions that came up at the planning board meeting was, is there another way that you could do it not with an asphalt parking lot?
Mhm.
And so the way that we have it drawn is according to town standards. So if there are other things that the town is willing to let us do that involves doing something other than asphalt, then we would look at that as well.
Yeah,
But right
yeah,
now, it's
yeah.
to code, what
Yeah,
the town
yeah.
looks for.
Well, and I know that when I look at the parking lot at the Shaw's Plaza, that I've never seen those spaces full, and I'm sure that they didn't build extra ones, so that must be what zoning requires too, but maybe our zoning requires more than is really needed at times. I don't know. I'm looking at another letter that comes from Ridge and Linda White, and the word that I highlighted was magnitude. Project of this magnitude at this location. They note that it's a hazardous intersection, and then they've got some. There was a notice issue that they mentioned as well, but. And then, oh yes, and then they did give us copies of what they had sent to the planning board, and so that I'm sure you've seen these: blind curve, busy intersection, residential zoning, large old trees, property values declines. Could you maybe just respond to those?
So I guess the first thing that I would say, a project of this magnitude, that could go back to the previous concern. Is it 160 people? Is it more parking than what we're actually saying that we have?
Yeah.
So that may clear up a piece of that. As far as the traffic concerns, so at that meeting, it was determined that we should do a traffic study.
Traffic study, yeah.
So we did order a traffic study, and it was just completed, and it's on file with the town now. One of those things, one of the things that was discussed at that meeting was we had proposed to have a second driveway that would be on the western side, that would be on the side of the Peak House.
Yeah.
Through the traffic study, we determined that there wasn't enough space between the driveway and the curve.
Oh, I see
So
what you mean,
we won't be putting in that. It was more for convenience sake to make sure that, that there was an alternate exit. But now, so we're having those plans redrawn in anticipation of going to the planning board on the 16th. So that would be one thing. And like I said, the traffic study does address some of those specific issues, and it's on file.
And maybe you hadn't mentioned it, so maybe I should mention it. One of the basic dilemmas of this property is that, as my understanding is, that it's in a residential zone. And under our zoning in Medfield, we adopted a zoning provision several years ago that allows historic properties to be reused for other than residential purposes if the zoning board of appeals approves it. And so that's, I think, what creates the tension in this case, because it's in an area where people have residences and expect residences, and yet they're ending up with a business proposal next door. I just noticed that a couple of there's another letter here from Scott Perkins and Susan Floyd, which also mentions the lack of notice issue, and I was just looking at that while you were talking, and both the notice issues are really the lack of notice of the selectmen's having you in to talk to us, and that's a sort of a problem with all of our agenda items that, I mean, we get, as selectmen, we get the agenda items on the Friday before the meeting. This week, because of Thanksgiving, we got it yesterday. And when we got this yesterday, this wasn't even on our agenda, so that, we don't always get a notice of what.
And we had been scheduled to come to a meeting a few weeks ago, but were asked, because of that same concern, to postpone it to this time. And so I'm not really sure what happened in between, but this was the date that we were given, and we've known about it for a couple weeks at least.
But for people that want to know what the selectmen are doing, the usual and best way for that is to look for the selectmen's agendas, which should be posted online by the Friday before our meeting. And in this case, it didn't happen because of the Thanksgiving Day holiday, but I know that can be frustrating if you don't get notice of what the selectmen are doing. And Mr. Perkins and Ms. Floyd say that the 43 parking spaces are insufficient. Adverse effects on property values, public hazards, traffic, public safety, excessive noise, light, odors, storm drainage. Selectmen should not be supporting this proposed project. And I mean, we're not in a position of supporting or not supporting. But can you maybe address those other issues?
So as far as the parking goes, as we mentioned before, it does conform to the town's regulations around that. That could also have been referring to whether or not there were 160 people.
Yeah.
So as I said, we need to make sure that that gets cleared up when we go back to the planning board.
Yeah. What
As
about the
far-
property values?
I don't think there's any evidence that would say that having this would lower people's property values. I'm not an expert in that area, but I think that having something that looks like this next to you would be better than the rundown, dilapidated building that's there right now.
Oh, yeah, better than what's there. But I think what people are concerned about is the change to the commercial use.
But as you said, there is a bylaw that we
That the
looked
town
into
has- yep.
beforehand in hopes to restore this, this historic building.
What about the traffic issues? Because that it is kind of a bad spot, and 109 is a fast road, high-traffic road.
So we do have a traffic study that was completed that would show that there were no real, not that there aren't concerns about what happens on that road, but that having this there will not necessarily make that worse. But I would encourage people, if they're interested, to read the study. And once again, we'll do whatever we can to make sure it's safe, and nothing that we're doing would impact the local residents around there.
Did the traffic study discuss the issue of someone coming out of the Clark Tavern and making a left turn and having that very huge Pound Street intersection across the way that's kind of
From
imprecise?
So I don't have it in front of me to
Ill-defined?
read everything, but it does review that.
Oh, good.
In addition, it goes back over the last several years to say that, there haven't been very many accidents in that particular area either. They felt like where the driveway was in conjunction to where Pound Street comes out, that it wouldn't cause additional safety concern.
Okay. How about the excessive noise, light, and odors? Because that's certainly a big change from a residential use next door.
So, I mean, we wouldn't be planning to have large raucous parties and things like that. I mean, obviously, it would have cars that would come in and out of there.
Yeah.
But the hope would be that with the buffer in between, that would block some of the light and the noise as well. And so we want to be good neighbors.
Is there going to be entertainment?
I mean, there could be entertainment inside in the hall, but
Yeah.
we would have to make sure we had the appropriate soundproofing and construction to do that.
Are you, is the interior still the 1700s interior, or are you redoing having to?
So the plan is that we will leave everything that we can intact. So right
good.
now, we had to take the plaster off the walls so they could look at it from an engineering perspective. But as far as the woodwork, the floors, the doors, all of those things we're keeping. And in many cases, there's no additional changing of what the rooms look like, with the exception of, obviously, there's no bathrooms for each one, so to, connect a room to a place where there would be a bathroom for the in-rooms.
Mhm.
But particularly in the front, where there are sitting areas and things like that, the rooms are exactly the same. The
Same.
fireplaces are intact. And the plan would be to try to use the same kind of materials to put things together. We have talked to a post and beam expert to help us learn how to fix the roof, so we don't have to take the roof off and put a new construction roof in. So we're doing everything we can to keep it as authentic as possible.
Great. I'm looking at a letter from Joanne Bragg, who lives at right near on Main Street, and she was saying that I think that it would be reasonable to expect that significant attempts would be made to improve the safety conditions in and around my neighborhood. And she cites sidewalks, dedicated left turn lane onto Pound Street, cars parking westbound on Main Street in front of the Peak House, park on both sides of Main Street, a crosswalk.
I'm not sure how I respond to that. I think that would be something that the town would have to look at as well. Right.
I can add to that a little bit. Try to help, is that we're more than willing to incur additional expense if sidewalks are needed, and we can add those. We would gladly add those. We would make the parking spaces available to the Peak House for events at the Peak House. They could gladly park in our parking lot. We don't care about that. But we would be more amenable to work through those things. Now, a turn lane, we'd have to reference back to the traffic study to see what that really entails or what that means for us. Crosswalk, if that's something that's necessary, then we could definitely address that as well.
Yeah.
I was smiling when you talked about sidewalks, because I keep trying to figure out how to get a sidewalk up to Shaw's. And we're always looking how to do things without having to spend money, so that's, although when I actually was on the ZBA and the people at the car wash offered to add a left turn lane, and I wrote that into the decision, and that got overturned by the land court, because they regarded it as an extraction from the applicant, so. And those are all the issues that I picked up from those, so thank you very much.
Richard?
No, I think Pete raised a number of issues that the abutters and the neighbors have, and I think what's important, and I want to just commend you for trying to be cooperative and trying to work with the town, with the neighbors. That house sat there for 7 years. No one purchased that. We were facing demolition by neglect. Much longer, it would probably fall down. I think we've gone into the history of that, but I think the concerns that the abutters have are legitimate concerns. And I know as a former resident, I first got out of college and was first married, I lived at 401 Main Street, and I realized the busyness of that street, and I think there's some legitimate concerns that are there. So if there's a way we can get those concerns addressed and sit down, and I know you've been more than willing and cooperative with that, but to really look at these. And then, of course, the planning board has the power to right into, into their plan to correct and make sure there's not, you know, some of these issues that are coming up. And that's something the planning board can do and well. I also just want to commend you for the preservation. You've toured me through, and I've been in there a number of times, and the work you've done to try to restore that and keep that in its historical contents. So hopefully we can address the issues that, and the legitimate issues that the abutters have, and then the end result is we're going to have a B&B that, first of all, there's nothing here in Medfield. If you have guests that are going to visit with you, you have to send them to Foxborough, or you have Milford or something else. And then the idea of a tavern that, the way I understand it and the way I see a plan would be similar to what we see, but even on a smaller scale, of the Sherburne Inn, which is in partial residential neighborhood as it enters the center of Sherburne. Behind you, you have wooded areas. There's woods. To the east, the immediate east, you have the Historical Society and the Peak House. I think basically you're not having any way to enter from the front. I think the doors will be restored, but
Right.
people won't be using that. So
Just
that,
this one area
except
here.
for the side. So from the front, you've restored what the tavern would have looked like, and you're not having traffic and stuff coming in off the front. And you're trying to blend what that building always looked like. So I don't have any other particular questions, just the hope that the legitimate concerns that are there, we can sit down and get those addressed. And in the end, I think it's a win-win situation for the town.
Right. Yeah, and I wanted just to follow up and just thank you very much for coming in and giving us an update on things. We do appreciate it, and I'm glad Peter reiterated to the fact to people, sometimes they don't understand the different roles of different parts of town government, and it's true, the selectmen, we have no say as far as
Right.
whether it's approved or not and whatever.
We just wanted
And,
you to know what the
no,
plan
and-
was.
Yeah, no, and we do appreciate that, because it's great to be informed about things. Once again, it's another public hearing, another opportunity for people to kind of hear a little bit about your plans and what you really like to do
On the
with things, you know.
16th and the 18th.
Yeah, so that'll be terrific. I did get to tour the house when it was for sale before the folks that bought it, they sold it to you, and I did get a tour through the house, and the ballroom on the back can be, which would be your function room or whatever you want to call it, could be stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting space and stuff like that. Very, very interesting and stuff. So
Mr. Chairman, is that actually a relative of yours that built that?
I don't know, but I'll take credit for it. I'll take credit for it. Yeah. So, but we do appreciate you coming in. We really do.
Thank you for the
and good luck
opportunity
with
to
things.
address the group.
Thank you. We do have some members here tonight, or maybe all the members, I guess, of the State Hospital Negotiating Committee. And I know they wanted to discuss some stuff with us about the proposed purchase of the State Hospital site. So, Steve, are you prepared to chat with us? Or
Sure.
Carry on? Okay.
I guess by way of background, so I am here, and the other members of the the negotiating committee are here. Mr. Peterson, Mr. Harney, Ken Richards, and Bill Massaro. We started this process back a few months ago with DCAM making their first offer at $4.4 million for the property. After meeting with you and meeting with the committee and meeting with the State Hospital Advisory Committee, we came up with a counter proposal of about $1.9 million, which we made to DCAM back in September. They finally came back to us in mid-November with an offer of $3.3 million. And we had a lot of discussion about that and some discussion with you about that. And the consensus of the committee is that based on the timeline we're facing with the administration and the waning time period we've got to get the legislation approved and get a town meeting vote and get a closing, that although there was some sense that we might be able to do a little better than $3.3 million, that still was a good price. It was in the range that we thought was attractive to the town. So we recommended that the town accept the offer at that point and move forward with the purchase of the property. So I can get into more of the details of the partnership model if you want, but the big picture item was really related to the price.
Of course. Yeah, oh, Ken, my head.
The number was 3-1, not
3-1, okay. I thought, okay, so the 200,000 differential is 3-1 down to 2.9 potentially, or?
No, when you mentioned the final price, it's actually 3-1.
Okay, so Ken's correcting me, the 3.1 is the price. I knew there was a $200,000 number in there, which is to cover the security costs from basically now until the end of 2014. So we have the possibility that if we purchase before the end of 2014, that they will actually reduce the cost by the amount of the savings that they encounter in not having to have security up there and other
that time
costs.
period,
So that's a $200,000 number. So I guess it could go from 3.1 down to 2.9. I was thinking it was 3.3 down to 3.1.
Okay,
But so it's actually a little lower than I said.
Excellent. So that's great. So, and I think you have communicated then with the state, with DCAM, of our interest to pursue. And
Right. I've indicated that we expect to go forward with them, but that it was up to the selectmen at a public meeting to actually accept the offer and sign the term sheet that they had proposed. So.
Okay, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight and stuff
Yes.
like that. Okay, stuff like that. All right. I don't know if we had any more questions or not. Pete, did you have any questions? I know we've talked about it a bit and stuff like that, but.
I don't have any questions, no. I mean, I think it's, having been involved in the process for almost 12 years now, what's very appealing to me, and I think would be very appealing to the town, is to control its own destiny in terms of controlling the ultimate use of the property up there. And so that's the major thing that interests me in this whole process is having the town having the ultimate say as to what happens to the Medfield State Hospital site.
That's great. Richard, do you have any thoughts?
No, just the only thing on the issue of the timeline, you have a window, an excellent window where you've developed a great relationship under this partnership between the Commonwealth and the town of Medfield. And who knows, under a new administration, what may happen. Do we go back to point A? Do we lose all that? So I know you're under just time constraints of that timeline, which I think is just so very important, which I think is part of the reason you didn't go back to try to keep negotiating more, because in the long run, we could lose everything. So I know that was difficult.
It was difficult, and it was a lot of conversation about that very subject. Mr. Harney has managed to set up a meeting with our state legislators for next week to sort of kick off the process of getting legislation to approve this, that being one of the time hurdles that we have to get legislation through, and then also have a town meeting vote to approve it, and then do the closing after that. So the timeline is actually feeling pretty constrained, especially on the legislative end. So we jumped on this right away to get the legislators to start moving forward, but that is from their telling us that that's an incredibly time-sensitive part of the process, and that if we don't get started with that soon, we're not going to get it in this legislative session, which means the entire deal would fall apart. And then, as you said, we don't know what's going to happen in the next administration.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to make it clear, especially to people at home, I know we've
Yes.
been kind of close to this project,
Yeah.
that while you are agreeing to the terms and you're agreeing to a price, it is subject to the town meeting and the voters
Thank you.
approving the actual purchase of the property. This is just to move that to the next step.
Great, and I think that's great. And I'll repeat it again for folks here, that we are not buying the land tonight. That this is just to move forward with the negotiation, but everything is always subject to a town meeting approval. We would never dream, or could not be possible to undertake something of this magnitude without having a special town meeting so that the citizens are all fully informed, and that we make all an educated and a town-wide decision about what we're going to do with this parcel of land. So I want everyone to, yeah, you're right, just to make yourself doubly clear that this is just step one of a long road to go through. And everyone's going to be involved, believe me. Yeah.
The other, and that's a really good point, and the other point is that the term sheet itself says that there's nothing binding about it until two things happen: the town meeting vote, but also that we negotiate a more definitive agreement. The term
Yes.
sheet is pretty much a bare bones outline.
Right.
And there are a lot of concerns that the committee had that we're going to have to work out in the actual contract that we would sign with DCAM, that then would need to be approved by town meeting.
Town meeting, okay, so that's
I think
terrific.
also, Mr. Chairman, and maybe Ross can speak on this, is that your committee is now in this next phase of trying to find out what does the community want. And so the community is going to be very much involved into this. And I don't know if you want to just speak briefly of the plans you have upcoming But this is, just to reemphasize your point,
Yeah.
this is something that is going to involve the entire town of Medfield. It's not anything taking place just tonight. So I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe
Yes,
Ross,
definitely.
just let the people know what opportunities they have to voice their opinion and
Well, right now, there are two major opportunities. One is an online survey that we've tried to publicize as many ways as possible, but you can find it on our website, which is mshvisions.net. Vision, I do it every time, because there's many visions. There's also hard copies of that available here at Town Hall, at the library, and at the Council on Aging for those who don't have internet access. The other major way for residents to give their input is going to be in a visioning meeting that's going to be held in January. Off the top of my head, I believe it is Saturday, January 11th.
Good.
And everyone is invited to attend and have their voice heard. The website is a wonderful way for people to read about the property, the history of the property, the legislation and rules about the property, the zoning, different things that could happen with the property. This is approximately 135 acres that is being offered to the town, and it can give the town a lot of opportunities to move forward with respect to open space and/or housing and/or recreational facilities, and it is up to the town to help us, the committee, try to give some counsel to you, the selectmen, as to how to move forward.
Terrific. Perfect.
Mr. Chairman, has the town been informed of all of the details of the partnership agreement at this point? Maybe that's something that we want to outline for them in terms of the profit sharing with the state?
Sure. The model that DCAM is proceeding under is called the sales partnership model. There's only one other instance where they've employed it, and that is in Westboro, where they're trying to sell them their former state hospital. The model involves DCAM recovering part of their sunk costs, they call it, which is costs to maintain the property since they've closed it as a state hospital, the security costs and things like that. So they total up all their costs and then ask us to pay half of that as the purchase price. We negotiated with them and got them to exclude certain items, and that's how we brought the price down from their 4.4 to 3.1. But once we own the property, we own it free and clear. We can do with it what we want. We can do nothing with it if we so choose, or we can redevelop it. If we choose to redevelop it and sell some or all of it to a private developer, then there's a sharing of the profits, if you will. So if we sell it to the developer for $4 million, then $2 million comes to the town, $2 million goes to DCAM. That's sort of the broad brush. There are ways in which there are incentives for the town if the town acts promptly and does certain kinds of studies and things. So there are various ways in which we can increase our percentage above the 50%. And there are also, timelines imposed so that if we do it more promptly, we can get a larger share. But generally, that's the outline. We would share the upside if we did dispose of it with DCAM.
And we can, if we do all of the things that they offer to us, we can max out our share at 70% of the
I think that's
profit.
right, yeah.
The resale profit.
One thing that we've talked a lot about is that one of the key costs up there will be dealing with the existing buildings, whether that involves rehabbing them, which itself will be expensive because they're deteriorated condition and the fact that they have asbestos in them and lead paint and other hazardous substances. So there are a lot of costs associated with both either remediating them and rehabbing them or demolishing them, whichever direction you would go in. So we would anticipate that if we did dispose of a part of the property to a developer, that we would impose that cost on the developer, thereby driving down the cost, because we don't want to have the situation where we pay a lot of those costs and then we end up sharing with DCAM. It would be better to impose those costs on the developer and then have that effectively reduce the net resale price, which reduces the amount we have to share with DCAM as well. So if we did do that kind of redevelopment, that's how we would expect to deal with the existing buildings, or at least as many as possible.
I find it comforting to think in terms of the worst-case scenario, in terms of the cost for the town, and if we had to demolish all of the buildings up there, DCAM has shared with us that their cost of demolition is $16 per square foot all in, and they're about 600,000 square feet of buildings up there, so you get up to a figure between 9 and 10 million to totally demolish everything that's up there, given the poor condition of all the buildings.
It's been one of the important points in the State Hospital Advisory Committee that some members keep reinforcing, is that the purchase price is only the beginning. If people go into this thinking that the town is just going to own this as open space, number one, there's hurdles to approving it because it's an historic district right now. But the other is there's a huge cost to just demolishing that and reducing it to raw land. And so that's an important thing for people to realize. I think most members of the committee think that a reuse plan is more logical and allows some recovery of those costs rather than the town paying a huge amount of money just to restore that to raw land, not to mention other factors like the historic district and other values that the town might have.
And if you have your developer do the demolition, then they're going to not pay prevailing wages, and so that'll drive the cost down by.
Right. The $16 is a prevailing wage price, which is considerably higher than a developer might pay.
I'd like to point out that the purchase price is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30,000 an acre. If the town were somehow, worst case, forced to take the buildings down at its own expense, you're talking about $9 million. You're adding another $100,000 an acre, so you're talking somewhere under $150,000 an acre for the land up there, and an acre of land in town, as we all learned going through the Redgate issue, is worth somewhere around $350,000 an acre. So, I mean, I just ask everyone to keep that in mind as well when we talk about this. That worst case, we're still talking about perhaps, double or triple, the money that we would spend.
Yeah, and I think just once again to reiterate for the folks that are listening at home and whatever, they'll listen to the tape of this, is, this is just the beginning of a very long process, and nothing's decided tonight, and there isn't going to be a secret committee that's going to decide what happens to the state hospital. Everyone's going to be involved. It's very exciting, I think, the fact that the state has come up with this model that allows the town really to take control of the property. It's a dramatic difference from what we were looking at a few years ago, where it wasn't like this at all. So I think we have a tremendous opportunity, and we're very lucky that we've got a lot of people that have volunteered their time to help us out to try to figure out what's going to work up there and what the town's going to want. So we do appreciate, thank you for all your help so far, and knowing that a lot of work to go forward. Yeah, it's just beginning. So we do appreciate it. So we need to take a vote, I believe, and stuff like that, to sign, we're going to be signing the term sheet. So Pete, would you like to?
Sure. I would say that we are deciding something tonight, Mr. Chairman. We're deciding to go forward to give the town the opportunity to look at this and make a decision on their own as to whether or not they want to pursue it or not.
Yeah.
And so that in that light, I would move that the board adopt the term sheet that's been negotiated by Steve's committee.
Yeah, and Richard?
Yeah, I go second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, excellent.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask whether we still have the committee there, two areas just slightly outside. Have we heard anything as far as the state's decision on the Odyssey House, or whether or not that's going to come down or not?
We just got a letter, right?
We just got a letter yesterday morning.
And
they're going to take it down.
yeah, great. And the second, have we
You
heard...
couldn't tell from that letter whether they're going to take it down or not.
It's coming down.
Have we heard anything more on the legislation that passed the town meeting concerning the water tower on the well site, how that's going in the legislative branch? Is that coming up soon, and everything still looks good? And
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Timothy a week ago today, and he allowed that it would come up very early in January. The legislature is not in full session until that time, and it just it was reported out of the initial committee favorably, and it's just being treated as a local matter in the legislature, and neither he nor Representative Garlick see any problem with it.
Excellent. Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. Good. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Thanks very much for your help, and thanks for coming in tonight.
I have one other state hospital item, and that's just our next joint coordination meeting with DCAM will be on December 17th at 3 o'clock. Okay. And at that time, we'll be talking about the timing for the Odyssey House coming down.
Oh, good, good.
Because the the laundry building and carriage house have come down already.
Oh, the carriage house did come down,
Yep,
okay.
that
Right.
project has been completed. The cost to have that, because the Odyssey House was an alternate on that contract, the cost to have the contractors come back now that they've already left the site may be cost prohibitive. They are talking about doing it possibly in early spring under a separate contract. We do have the commitment from the commissioner to take
To
it
do
down.
that. Good, excellent. Thank you. All right, action items. We would like to take a vote to reappoint Ron Gustafson to the Medfield Cultural Council as of December 14, 2013, as recommended by Jean Mineo, Chair of the Medfield Cultural Council.
So moved.
Ron has done a great job in the past. I'm more than happy to second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep. Aye. The selectmen are invited to attend the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Nicholas James Sauro on Saturday, January 4th at the American Legion, 4 p.m., and an Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Peter Thomas Whalen on Saturday, January 18th, the United Church of Christ at 2 p.m. Yeah, it had been like, we've been in a little lull here. What happened to our Eagle Scouts? It'd been like months, you know? So that's terrific. That's, once again, terrific, some great things to go to. Next, we have a vote to approve the meeting minutes of October 22nd and November 5th. Any comments from Pete or Richard?
I posted these on my blog, and I immediately got a notice from Ron Griffin that he did not resign from the Committee to Study Memorials. It was Rob Gregg who resigned, so if we could make that change. And it's another change that I'm not sure if it may be important from a legal standpoint, because under the executive session on November 5, it has me declaring that we needed to go into executive session, and I thought that was the chair's role, and so I'm sure that you were the one that declared that.
Okay. That's fine.
I don't know if that makes a difference.
The critical declaration is the chair declaring that an open meeting would have a prejudicial effect on the town's bargaining position, and then a motion would be made on that basis.
Yeah, well, I picked it up just because you've always told us that it should be the chair that declares that, and the minutes say that I
So the
declared
chair
it so
read
that it
the
would,
following. It should have been the chair reading it.
and it was.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I read the motion.
All right, excellent. So it's the chair. Which date was it? Which be, November, the
It's
November 5th.
I'll give you these, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Okay. Richard?
No corrections, I'm
Okay,
fine.
good. So make a motion to accept it? Yeah, you said that? Yeah. Okay.
I would move that we accept them. Yep.
Okay, Richard,
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. All righty. Okay, now next we got the annual renewals here. Vote to approve for the calendar year 2014 all alcoholic license for the following restaurants: Basil's, Jing's Garden 2, Kingsbury Club of Medfield, Noon Hill Grill, Takara, Zebras, Bistro and Wine Bar, a club license to the American Legion Beckwith Post 110, an all alcohol package store license to Bullitt's Market, Medfield Package Store, which is Larkin's, and Vet Package Store, which is Palumbo, and a wine and malt license to Medfield Wine Shop and Medfield Commons. Any comments on that as far as, Michael, I think everyone's, or Evelyn, everyone's fine with the town?
Yes.
Everything's,
Yes,
yeah,
everything.
okay.
Can I just, and this was before I was on the board, but I know the last time there was some issues with Medfield Wine and Medfield
What was Medfield Commons?
The Commons, that's the one where,
That's
Golf.
the
Right.
golf, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is that been okay since
Yes.
the last
The-
controversy there? Do you know?
The fundamental problem was there's a deadline, which this year fell because of the holiday before Thanksgiving. Last year, they didn't get their form in within that time period, so that
Okay.
I thought it
automatically.
had something to do, they were putting a display of alcohol up close in the.
Well, there were all kinds of issues. There was outstanding, there was an outstanding water and sewer bill that was challenged at the appellate tax board. There were taxes. There was that issue that you were talking about. But then more fundamentally, they allowed their license to lapse by not getting the application in a timely way. So they had to go back and start over.
And they agreed to put the alcohol towards the back.
Back
That has
into
been
it.
fine since then?
I haven't been back in since then, I don't know.
Yes.
Fine, yeah.
Do we have someone that actually checks on that? I haven't been in there, to be honest with you.
I asked the chief if they were complying with it, and he said they were.
He's okay?
Yeah.
Good.
It was put in as a condition of the renewal license. It
Right.
wasn't in the original license,
Right.
but when they had to renew,
Yeah,
when they had to
that's right.
start the process all over again,
Yeah.
Right.
it was put in as a condition, so they had to comply
And they're
with it.
following that condition?
Yes.
It was stated 3 different ways, so there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. Good. All right, so I guess, Pete, would you like to make
I
a
would move that
motion?
we approve those licenses as you indicated.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
We've got licenses and permits. High school student Kathleen Lanzilla requests permission to post signs in the 4 designated locations promoting a food drive. She is organized as an ambassador for Project 351 to benefit the Medfield food cupboard. Items may be dropped off at Needham Bank until December 13th.
There was a letter asking, from her mother, asking whether it would be possible to hang signs from other areas than the 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be cautious about that because we have an awful lot of groups that would like to put signs all over town.
Yeah.
And we have designated locations to
Yeah.
try to keep the
Yeah.
proliferation of signs down.
The bylaw is fairly specific as to the manner of the signage, too. It's not supposed to be any kind of attachments or
Right.
anything other than what's being used.
And in the approved locations, yeah. So I would assume we'd stick to that as far as like with everyone else.
It's one of those areas that I don't think anybody polices in town. I mean, since we vote on these signs, I tend to notice which ones we voted on, and there certainly are signs around town that we don't vote on.
But on him.
I just often wonder whether we should ask somebody, the police or somebody
It's a
to,
policeman.
Well, I think the building commissioner
Yes, he's
actually
been
is
doing
in
it.
charge of that.
He's been taking down
Yeah,
signs that should not be
Yeah.
there.
I think what would make sense is to, if the police who are out and about all the time
Right.
could alert the building inspector as to when they see them.
Yes.
And I think that would get it taken care of.
Technically, though, I don't think it is the building inspector because our streets aren't zoned,
That's correct.
so it would be a police matter.
It's a general bylaw, and it technically is under police jurisdiction. That being said, Franklin's practice is that the building commissioner, who drives around all the time, picks up signs.
It's easier to
He's
do
been
it,
the
but-
one, because I've had several complaints, and then I've contacted him, he's gone right out and actually.
Yes, he does. He
sometimes
does enforce
physically
it, yeah.
removed it himself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll bring them somewhere and hold them, and people
Yeah.
can, if they want them back, come pick them
Come
up.
back, yeah.
Town pound.
Yeah. Lock them up.
Town hall.
Use one of the jail cells, so they can't use it for anything else. They can stockpile the signs in there.
So is it actually the police's job, then? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
it is, it's working the way it works with the building inspector
It is
doing, but technically,
He
it's
really
the,
does a good
it's the
job with it.
police.
Every time he's notified, he's right out there.
Right, yeah.
But wouldn't it make sense to have the police keeping their eyes open and alerting the building inspector when they?
Yes, yeah, and frequently, it's one of those things, people will call in and say, if there's a sign out there, I don't think it's supposed to be there, and he'll go out and get it, so.
You want to do
It's
a
a
motion, Pete,
both.
just to do a letter to the chief?
Sure, yeah, I would move that we ask the chief to have the police department employees, as they drive around, be on the lookout for signs that are non-compliant and alert the building inspector as to them.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Good, okay, that's great. The Council on Aging requests a one-day wine and malt permit for December 18th, the Supper Club and the Bingo Blast.
Did we vote Kathleen Lanzilla's?
We just did. I mean, I assume that's what it was for that, so we'll just,
I didn't think we voted.
we had too much discussion on her sign, so we're going to vote that she can put her
I
signs up,
move that
right?
that Kathleen be able to do her signs.
Right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Okay. Now we got to get back to the Bingo Blast from 4 to 8 p.m. at the center on December 18th. Sounds very, very exciting. Pete, would you like to make a motion for that?
I would move that the Council on Aging get a one-day wine and malt permit for December 18, Supper Club and Bingo Blast,
I
4 to
can't
8
wait
p.m.
that.
at the center.
It was the bigger party folks, Zulo Gallery of the Council on Aging,
Aging, I know.
the center, they're pretty,
Yeah.
it's a close race.
It is, yeah. So, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Excellent, good. Okay. Under pending, we've got discuss the nominations for the Pocket Park Steering Committee, Jean Mineo, Matt McCormack, Tim Larkin, Monique Allen, Minta Hissong, Jim Snyder. Well, we had nominated, right? Haven't they all been nominated for that? We're all set with that, aren't we? The steering committee? Yeah. Thank you. because they're moving forward, right? And Jean is the chairwoman, I understand, for the committee at the moment and stuff, I think, so.
Yeah.
Do we have to accept these? I think Tim Larkin was new. Do we have to accept these?
Well, you'd be appointing the committee, so you'd have to appoint them.
Okay.
I would move that we appoint these individuals to the committee, and Jean, well, they can appoint their own chair.
Excellent, okay.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Good.
I think the reason it was held, wasn't there something, it was a broker and someone that would, and a businessman from downtown? Wasn't there they wanted to have possibly a
downtown
broker
person,
and
yeah,
a business person from
So they've got Tim
downtown?
there for the
Yeah.
downtown business,
So,
which is good,
yeah.
yeah. Good, okay. We talked about the state hospital, that's good, yeah. And we have this letter, right, I said, as we had mentioned, from Mass Historical about having the Odyssey House come down. And that is like the most difficult letter to try to figure out. She didn't really say.
It was totally opaque.
It was an opaque letter.
You couldn't figure out what she was
You
saying.
have to like call her up to say, what did you really mean? But I guess they're
we
going to
tear it
allow it
down
to.
or
Yeah,
not?
yeah. I guess they're going to let it to come down, which is terrific, because what an eyesore that thing is.
It's
So
too
that's
bad,
great.
and it's
Yeah.
just too bad that that happened that
delay.
way, because otherwise it would already be down, and
Yeah,
the state
I
would have
know.
saved money
Yeah.
on the demolition of
Now
it.
it's going to cost them more money with them fooling around with that, which is too bad. But yeah, you read the letter, Richard, and it's like she never like says yes or no. It's like
Maybe, yeah.
yeah,
It's like one of those term papers we all wrote when we were in college. Trying to figure out what
Throw a
they
lot of
were.
stuff
yes.
in there,
It's
yeah.
attorney wrote.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah, so I guess no comment means that she has no opposition to it, I guess, but it's, once again, you have to call someone to figure out what they mean with their letter. Oh, so that's great news. That's really, really super. Selectmen's report, Pete?
Just remind everybody that the Medfield Foundation Angel Run is this coming Sunday,
Yep.
2 o'clock, starts and ends at the Wheelock School, a very enjoyable, fun run. If you drive there, I'm helping with parking, so I'll show you where to park. Volunteer of the Year process is underway. Anybody who knows an extraordinary volunteer in Medfield, please write up their work and submit it, and get them some recognition. We've gotten our first suggestions for recognition in already, and that will run through the end of January when people can submit. I had someone who lived on Wild Holly got in touch with me and asked about a sidewalk down to their neighborhood, or, which I was very fascinated by, a connection from their neighborhood over to Wheelock. I thought that was a great idea, but of course that would probably go across somebody's yard and private property, and I don't even know if it connects directly to Wheelock, but that would be a great connection if we could have that type of connection.
I'm sorry, you've lost me from where to where?
Wild Holly?
Over to Wheelock.
Over to Wheelock area?
Wheelock.
You did Homestead land that the town bought at some point. I don't know whether it's direct connection to there or not.
Well, I think you'd have to go through some of the houses at the end of
Certainly
Wild
have to go
Holly.
through some private property on Wild
Up there,
Holly.
yeah.
Yeah, because if the town had really wanted that, they would have had to have gotten that at the time of the,
And I was on the planning board, and I don't recall that it
no,
was.
I'm sure it's not.
Actually, we got, no, that was different. The pond, we got the pond around the same time as a separate transaction.
Was Wild Holly before we acquired the Homecrest land or after? Do you
After.
recall?
I think it was before, but I'm not sure.
Oh. David Stevenson got in touch with me because he'd been up to Portland over the holidays, and I guess they do curbside pickup of kitchen waste up there, so that your food waste they pick
Oh,
up.
okay, sure.
And
Like the old days, yeah.
he was curious as to whether that would work in Medfield, or in some way, not pickup maybe, but some drop off.
Looking at that.
Think were they going to look at that?
Yeah.
Kind of go
They
back,
made a presentation.
back to the future.
Yeah, it turned out to be it was the presentation of the Solid Waste Committee. It was a private company, and they were going to charge, but they wanted the town to mandate collection from everybody.
Oh, okay.
And the
Well, I think
committee
they had
was
two
reluctant.
options. One was mandatory, but the other was,
Was voluntary.
the price would have gone up. You would have had to pay for it yourself.
You would have to pay quite a bit, and they would have needed a minimum number of customers in order to offer the service, and it was quite expensive. I think it was like $8 a week or something.
But what
If it was
they had,
voluntary.
They had these, not like the old Kedsky days,
Yeah.
not Kedsky, Cassidy days.
Yeah.
But they had these containers that were airtight, you couldn't smell anything,
Oh.
and you'd put your
Yeah.
food garbage in that, and then
Yeah.
that would seal, and then they would come and pick that up. Or they were talking about possibly you'd take it down to the transfer station, and then they would
Oh,
take
it from there.
So they had a couple of options, but I haven't heard
Right.
anything more from that.
Yeah, there was another issue too, that they felt if making it mandatory, a lot of people dispose of a lot of their food waste. A lot of people have garbage disposals now,
Yeah.
and they don't have a lot of food waste, you know,
Yeah.
they might compost in their backyard.
Not food waste.
Well, the old days, it was, you
Food
couldn't
waste,
put it in the...
vegetable clippings
In
and
the
all that.
vegetables,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
vegetables,
But
yeah.
the food waste, a lot of people will put down their garbage disposal, so
Right. Yeah.
they would not be thrilled about having to be mandated a program for which they had little use. The other thing I think keep in mind is, I believe next July, the state is going to make it mandatory for restaurants and hotels that generate over a certain amount of food waste. It will be mandatory recycling, so it's going to take them a couple of years to get off the ground on that program. So I think that's probably something that eventually is going to be made mandatory statewide for everyone in some form or another.
Maybe we should look to the town getting into that business and servicing all of the restaurants in the area.
Well,
around when we had
There
that
we go.
discussion
on the trash train, yes. I think that would be...
Didn't go over well.
Yes, that would put the moderator over the edge.
But well, I think that'll do quite a bit. I mean, just getting the restaurants doing that, I mean, that's a lot of food.
And I think they need to start. The other big issue has been the facilities to compost these.
Yes.
I know, wasn't there an issue in Franklin where somebody wanted to come in and put one in?
Actually, it
and-
was town land, it was a proposal for an anaerobic digester.
Yeah.
They make methane.
They don't smell great, probably.
That wasn't, supposedly, that was not an issue, but you've got truck traffic coming from all directions.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
was an issue. And then there were concerns that simply couldn't be addressed. The state sent a representative who was less than assuring, and the council just decided that it wasn't in the town's best interest.
Yeah.
I believe there's one down the Fall River, New Bedford area somewhere, isn't there?
I don't know.
There is an anaerobic digester, it's already up and running, I
Oh,
believe.
good, yeah.
They look like nuclear reactors
Right.
almost when you see them. They're big balls standing on legs or something, and
yeah.
they're quite...
So they they keep everything, once it gets
Yeah.
there, it's
Yeah.
a
And I
self-contained thing.
And I think that's something we should get into, but I think it's something that needs to be worked out with the big producers so that until they figure out a system, and then gradually,
Bring it into
residential properties will
Yeah,
come
no, I
on
think
board
that'd
with
be
it.
good.
So it goes around, comes around. When I first came to town, we collected garbage
That was
house
great.
to house.
That was great.
And then we did away with it, and now we're talking about going back.
It's
so
always funny how things
it's-
come around.
Yeah.
It is. It just always happens. Yeah.
Well, that actually was Proposition 2.5 that ended that, because that was one of the ways the town saw to save money, was to eliminate the Cassidy.
Right, and there was a certain amount of opposition to that. People liked the garbage collection, a certain number,
Yeah.
and didn't like the idea of putting it in with their trash.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think eventually we'll go back to some sort of, unless, as I said, a lot of people have garbage disposals, and that usually will take bones even, and,
I mean, obviously, the
meat
meat
waste
waste,
and-
that
yeah.
can't be, but there's a whole lot that can be, and,
Your
if
own
you get,
compost thing.
there's all kinds of
Yes.
containers available, there's even state grants to get them, and it's great stuff if you garden, as I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
They call it brown gold, so.
That's it.
Okay, Richard?
Just a couple of things I picked up on my walk, and one is there's a Department of Environmental Protection sign, a DEP sign, and I can't believe that I haven't noticed it, but it's right on South Street by the intersection of Elm and Norwood, and I think it was there from the old construction they had on South Street years and years ago. If we could, I don't know who put the sign there, but see if our DPW could remove that.
yeah, I'll check with Leslie first to make sure that,
Not active.
I mean,
It's
yeah, it was
non-active,
when they reconstructed South Street. Now, that was 10 years ago.
Is it on the railroad track side or on the other
No,
side?
it's,
Where that beautiful
it's
tree
right by
is?
where the sidewalk cuts across the little path going from South Street to Norwood.
Oh, okay.
By,
Or with the
the
tree
by that tree?
Tree that they,
For the
Angel
holidays, yeah,
Right there?
okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
somebody
It's like
pointed
funny how
out,
you
I
don't
said,
even notice it.
Well, no, you don't.
Because
But
you
it's
drive
just-
that all the time.
Just another sign that's
Yeah.
it's rusting away and
Yeah.
really serves no purpose.
Jeez.
The other thing, there's a couple of large potholes that are in the water valves in the middle of the intersection of Phillip and Elm Street, and another one on the intersection of Harding and Long Meadow. There's a water valve in the middle, but then there's a good-sized pothole around it.
water bill?
And it just needs, I think, to be tarred
Stop all
and
that.
filled in. And there's one more in the middle of Knollwood Road, in the front of number 17 Knollwood.
There's
And then-
another one of those right out here in front of the
Well,
library.
No, you know what that, I looked into that, and the, Bobby Kennedy was just saying, that's from the gas company. The one that's right at the intersection of
by the library?
Pleasant and Main, there's 4 of them, if you follow them coming down Main Street, and it's the responsibility of the gas company to fix that. And our DPW has been after them numerous times on
Oh,
the phone
good.
calls.
Oh, there we go again.
And they've been on numerous times as well to fix the area of Adams Street from West Street down to West Mill Street,
Yeah.
where they dug up, and then they never properly filled it, so you have this huge rut in the road.
Yeah.
Now, they were here earlier in the fall, in the late summer, early fall, and they fixed the area of Cottage Street and the area of Adams Street from Cottage to Dale, but then they left, and they never did that other section of Adams Street, and our DPW has been after them trying to get it, but that particular pothole is the responsibility of the gas company. So maybe that's something we can maybe get after them and see if they can, because that's an awful pothole that's
It
out
is.
there.
It
But
is.
there's 3 other ones along Main Street that are the same. The other issue, I'll just throw out to see if it's something, maybe at a town meeting article, if the residents of Medfield, my initial reaction was that it seems favorable for environmental reasons, but I don't have all the facts on it. And I don't know if you read in the Sunday Globe, but the town of Brookline passed at their town meeting to ban the disposable plastic bags. And they also did the styrofoam containers that are there. And just to read a little section of that, Brookline's Director of Public Health and Human Services said this week that this ban would go into effect. They're actually allowing retailers additional time so that those stores that had plastic bags in stock would be able to use up the current inventories before switching. The Director of Public Health and Human Services of Brookline said he's going to wait to conduct any enforcement on the styrofoam containers until January, permitting those food establishments, again, to go through their inventory. The Brookline Town Meeting approved the ban in November of 2012, citing concerns that the products are not good for the environment. There's 70 businesses in Brookline that have the disposable plastic bags and 350 food establishments with the styrofoam containers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Then I looked in, there's other towns that have done that as well. Great Barrington, Massachusetts, they voted at their annual town meeting to approve a ban on all plastic bags on May 2013. That will go into effect this January 2014. Manchester by the Sea approved a ban on all plastic bags in their April 2013 annual town meeting, and that will go into effect in July. And the town of Nantucket has had a ban on all plastic bags since 1990. So maybe just to throw out, Mr. Chairman, to see if there's any interest in the town at all, if there are maybe residents that feel environmentally this is an issue that we, even though we're a small town, need to begin to address. And if there is some concern, and there's citizens that come forward, maybe we can actually appoint a committee that look at some type of an article that would go to town meeting and see what the people of Medfield want. Do they want to ban it or they don't? But give them the option on that.
I think that's an excellent idea. You see those plastic bags everywhere, unfortunately, and they must have a half-life of a trillion years, unfortunately.
Was that approved by the Attorney General? It must have been.
The Attorney General did approve it, and that's only in the case of towns. They don't have to approve cities, but those were towns. And also Concord, Mass has prohibited
those
single water bottles, plastic water bottles. That being said, you should be aware that obviously the plastic industry and other industries affected aren't about to take this lying down. There is legislation pending that my municipal attorneys group has been watching, which would attempts to deprive municipalities of the ability to enact bylaws affecting products and commerce. So,
Yeah, I can see
you
your
know,
point.
it's,
Yeah.
It's interesting, Nantucket's had this since 1990.
well, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard tend to be treated somewhat uniquely right across the boards.
But I just thought if there's, if interest in the town of Medfield, give them the option, see if that's what they want.
As far as legally, it was upheld by the AG as far as an appropriate subject to bylaw.
Along those lines, I was reading this week that there was legislation filed by, I believe it was a representative from Franklin, to allow cities and towns to publish legal notices and they're on the web instead of in newspapers.
Yeah, it was, Jeff Roy.
And the newspaper publishers were right into the legislature opposing it.
Yep.
So, that would be a good savings to the town if we didn't have to publish those legal notices.
Is that legislation pending, or is that coming?
It just got filed.
It just got filed.
Just got filed.
I mean, it's not just legal notices. If you enact bylaws, new bylaws, the town clerk has to print those entirely in a newspaper, and you can have situations where you're doing a comprehensive rewrite and it just goes on for pages.
How much are we spending, ballpark, in the course of a year, just on legal notices in all town agencies?
It's spread. I have to ask Joy if she could dig it out from, the way they code the bills, but it's all departments, because you got schools, you got Board of Appeals, Planning Board,
You're
Board of
talking
Health.
thousands of dollars?
I'm saying thousands, yes, easily. Yeah.
I mean, at least when you're talking the boards, they're getting those fees from the applicants. That's part of what the applicants are paying for a fee, so there's other situations where you have to do it.
One of the things I'd like to do is revote all our traffic rules and orders, because we had an intern here a couple of years ago that put them all together.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that we don't know whether they were published correctly. And if you could just revote them all
then you know at
and
least you-
put them all on the website, but it would probably cost you $10,000 to publish them.
Well,
So
hard,
we haven't been
yeah.
able to do it. So.
Yeah.
so
That's
maybe
another
if
thing.
there are residents then that are interested,
Sure.
dealing with environmental issues concerning the plastic bags in particular, maybe they can let Town Hall know. And if it appears to be an interest, and maybe we can continue with that. The other thing I just want to make note of the death of long time, a Medfield native and longtime resident, Bob McCarthy, who was a police officer here in Medfield back in the 50s and 60s. And then he went on to Westwood. And the McCarthy family has been here forever. The father owned the old Colonial Inn down on East Main Street. And he was a World War II veteran. He always came back here to Medfield. They moved down to the Cape a number of years ago, and they always came back for Memorial Day. And clearly this was still his hometown. So I just want to make note, just a great individual, and just some sadness. And his wife, Ruth, who also was a Medfield, she was a Ziza, a Medfield native that also went way back. Our condolences to her and then their children and their family. That wake is tomorrow, and then the funeral will be on Thursday here at St. Edward's. A couple of meetings I went to, I continue to go to the Tuesday garage meetings. Today, they talked about getting into a winter schedule. They're going to have to try to work around the colder temperature and how they can use plastic and these blankets and things like that. And they actually selected all the colors to be used for everything inside the building, which was interesting. You never think of some of these things when you talk about making a building a highway garage, but just the time and the effort of all the details that have to go in to that.
Can't say enough about the work of the Permanent Building Committee, the efforts they put into it.
Yeah, and they're just keeping right on top of everything.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
And this is all, as you say, volunteer.
All volunteer.
efforts.
Yeah.
I also attended the planning board meeting on the issue of Roach Brothers. That hearing will continue. One of the issues that came up was the issue of the sidewalks in front. And I just before this meeting attended the meeting of the Aesthetics Committee, which was dealing with that. What they've proposed to do is to set up a meeting with Ken and Mike, if you could be there, and with an ADA official. And I don't know if you have a better contact, or I can go through Senator Chimilty or Representative Garwick's office to get the Americans for Disabilities Act person to come out to show us exactly what needs to be done, and their regulations change, it seems, often. And along with the Aesthetics Committee and Roach Brothers, to try to see what, if anything, can be done. The Aesthetics Committee is trying to make a proposal that future construction look like Pound Street, where you have a small area of brick and then you have the cement that's in there. So it was interesting in that meeting what they're trying to set up to try to come to some conclusions. Roach Brothers has been very supportive to try to help both financially and other ways to help pay for costs in the area in front of not only the former Lords, but down as far as the jewelry store. You make a nice break, and then you get the opening that goes into the park and the library. So that's they're continuing to work on that. And
yeah, let me talk to Ken. It may be somebody from ADA. There's a state office on disability, but there's also Mass Highway.
There's also Mass Architectural Barriers Commission.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can get somebody who the best one might be on sidewalks.
Is it
Maybe
Roland?
Mass
Who's
Highway.
the engineer we have at the time? Is it Roland?
Roland LaValle.
He's been with us for a long time.
HNTB is the company.
Maybe he could maybe suggest that
somebody.
they bring him in as well. But they're trying to set up a meeting with that, because there is a window of opportunity. If we did something now, we could get Roach Brothers to pick up a large percent of that cost. Roach Brothers' concern is they want it done before the opening, because they don't want everything disrupted for the opening. If that doesn't take place, we lose that window of opportunity, and if the town did decide to continue or start with the recommendations of the Aesthetics Committee, who then has to propose that back to the planning board, then the town would be picking up the full cost themselves. The initial cost, they estimate to be around $35,000 to do the area from the back parking lot all the way around to the jewelry store, and that would include grates around where the trees are.
Sure.
Which Dedham and Wellesley and a lot of other towns have done. And the other thing that was just brought to my attention today at that meeting, tying into the ADA, is the sidewalk that Starbucks, around Starbucks, was not properly put in, and they're gonna have to redig that sidewalk up because it doesn't conform to the ADA requirements.
Yeah, they're very strict on those. You can't be off by more than a quarter of an inch or something. It's very strict.
So that contractor's gonna have to come back, I guess, in the spring and redig up that entire area and then redo it the right way. And that was all, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thanks. So we've got a busy week coming up here in town with events. We've got First Thursdays coming up again this week. Zulu Gallery course is open again. And I believe, and the Dwight Derby House has got some stuff going on, I believe, Thursday night too, right? So we got a lot of stuff going on. Friday night will be the tree lighting at Baxter Park. I think the weather's not looking too good, but whatever, it's going to be kind of lousy, I think, rainy and stuff. But they'll be having the kids that win the singing contest will be singing there again on Friday night at the tree lighting. They're very good. Their auditions are this Wednesday night at the high school. Saturday is the holiday parade, right? We got Santa. Santa will be going through town with the fire trucks and stuff, 1 o'clock, I believe it is. And the Lions, and just a plug for the Lions. Lions are selling the trees again, as they do every year in the corner of the parking lot, Shaw's parking lot, out down that corner where they always are. I did my first shift this last Sunday. It was great. The 2 hours I was there just happened, it wasn't raining. The only 2 hours maybe it didn't rain on Sunday, so it was kind of nice. And it was busy, because it's quick this year. People don't have many weekends. One less weekend for people to get their trees. So it was good. The trees are fabulous down there, so that'll be my plug for Lions. Christmas trees. They come from Maine, so the trees are made in America.
Allagash Farms.
Allagash Farms, yeah.
Allagash View Farms.
Yeah. So made in America, support American products and stuff, whatever. So,
Could be your last year to get a Fraser fir, too. I hear there's some sort of root rust or rot or
is that
something
right?
that's killing all the Frasers.
Oh, wow.
I hear
Oh, it's
that
affecting just the
they're
Frasers.
they're trying to develop a new kind of tree that will last longer and shed less.
Oh, is that right? Yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
that may take a few years.
Yes, yeah.
It's called an artificial
I
tree.
was gonna say, there's all that at Target right now.
Yeah, plug and play, so to speak. You stick it in, plug it in, you're all
They even
done.
covered aluminum.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of things. We missed the Midnight Madness of Lords for the first
Oh,
time.
that's right, it'll be the first
However,
time, yeah.
But there's a couple, I know Park Street
Oh.
Books and Toys will be open to, I believe, at least 10 o'clock, and they have activities.
Yeah.
And the butterfly
Oh,
tree
yeah,
across the street is going to be staying open late
Yeah.
as well. So there's a number of merchants that are
right, going to
also
be trying to fill in.
be doing
yeah.
things.
The Dwight
And
Derby
Dwight
House
Derby
has
House,
their
yeah.
shop
Dwight
open that
Derby
night.
That's right.
Yeah.
They've got the Santa at the
Oh,
Dwight Derby
Santa's
House
going to be
that
there.
night.
Oh, good, he'll be there before he shows up on Saturday morning, so it's a busy day.
And
for
the
him.
UCC choir has a performance after too. so
That's right, on
they-
Friday night.
Oh, they do a beautiful job at the UCC
Yeah.
Church, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. Anything on the informational thing?
Yes,
Michael?
there's
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to call your attention to, that letter from NSTAR, the police chief brought to my attention. He received this yesterday from their council, and NSTAR has decided that the law is on their side, and they are going to refuse to pay for any police details during emergency repair work during storms. Now, the chief said that this was done without any consultation with the police departments or fire departments.
Yeah.
It was just a notice sent out, and he said, I knew it wasn't a good sign when they started quoting legal precedents in
Oh, yeah.
Massachusetts and New York, and
Yeah.
so essentially,
What does that mean?
well, we're not quite sure, there's emergency service if a wire gets down in the street, and he said usually they will work with the NSTAR to get the wire put out of service,
Yeah.
but then if there's, say, a tree falls down on the wires and they have to repair the wires, and you need a police detail there because it's gonna be an all-day process,
Yeah.
I believe they're gonna refuse to pay for a police detail and say it's the town's responsibility because this is an emergency repair.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna create a lot of flack, and I
I
think
think so. Oof.
So you don't put the detail there, and you have this hazard, safety hazard,
Yeah.
and you do, and then that's an additional cost on the taxpayers in Medfield.
Yes, yeah. This NSTAR, these mergers of these companies getting bigger and bigger has got to stop. They get less and less personal. We've gone through hell to try to get electrical service at the town garage, and we still don't have it.
And when it was Boston Edison, I think you used to have a good relationship way
Good
back.
relationship, yeah.
Way back, the old
Now,
days, right?
if it isn't a rest day, there was an accident in Dover, the weather was bad, it was raining, we can't set the poles because it was wet, and, it goes on.
But they also used to Boston Edison actually used to come out, anytime there was a major hurricane storm, they would come out and actually camp out at the police and fire station. Be there.
It's all done by computer.
Right, so you've lost that whole personal
Yes.
touch. And they don't know the streets
No.
or anything else.
Sometimes the crews are from Michigan or
Right,
Pennsylvania
they have no idea
or
if there's
Maine.
something on Flintlock Lane, they have no clue.
Well,
what
they're bare
Flintlock Lane
bones,
is.
and as Mike says, they're relying on the backups that are coming in from these coalitions that they form.
And if we ask, if our highway crews or police or fire personnel ask the crews to help with a situation, they'll say, we cannot do it unless we're dispatched or we'll be fired, we'll be laid off for 2 weeks.
I know. So what are they gonna do? The guys
So
can't
they're
do that.
sitting in their truck waiting to be dispatched, some cases for several hours,
Right.
Yeah.
when they could be out doing something. I mean, it is getting worse. I think it's something we need to bring to our reps' attention. Not only that, every time you turn around, they want money. You know, Ken got a letter yesterday. We've paid $37,000 for to design a permanent service for the town garage, electrical service. He gets a letter yesterday saying, we gotta send another check for the temporary service. And we asked what the amount is. They don't know yet, because the guy that's in charge of designing it hasn't come up with a price to design it yet. Well, I think all you do is connect the wires together, you
Yeah,
know.
it's not really that hard.
Probably our electrician is all set to do it, but he's gotta wait till they complete the design. And that's probably gonna cost us another chunk of change.
Yeah, it's
It's
wicked.
just gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
And if you talk to the architects, you talk to the project managers, you talk to building owners, it's
all the same thing.
everywhere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awful. You
Yeah.
mentioned it.
In
the
Boston, same
projects in
thing.
Boston.
Yeah, same thing. It's just not us, you know.
They're so unresponsive, and I think it's probably because they're getting too big. You know, they merged with some outfit, Connecticut, so they don't care about Medfield, you know, we're just
Yeah.
someplace out in the middle of nowhere.
You've lost that personal touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Representative Garlick convened a meeting to try to convince NSTAR to
Oh,
be
they're
more
very good at
responsive.
meetings. They'll tell you everything you want to hear.
I'd ask her to
Set up
bring
another
them in
one.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, they really are useless, really, basically, utility companies, you know, I mean, as far as their service. They certainly make enough money, and as we're well aware, all their chief executives, all their senior executives make more than enough money.
Get good golden
The
parachutes.
statement that jumped out at me from that letter was the attorney, the general counsel, saying that they have an obligation to their stockholders.
Yeah.
As a regulated utility,
Aren't we there? Yeah.
to not incur, to not take on costs that are not
Yeah.
theirs.
Yeah.
So that I think what we need to do is have Representative Garlick and Senator Timley explain
Yes.
to them that these should be their costs.
Well, and that the representatives have an obligation to the taxpayers that they don't take on unwarranted costs.
Now, do they have the power just to say we're not,
They cite court cases. They're saying the courts have ruled.
is this something
In
our
their favor.
Attorney General will
They are-
challenge or something?
I think and talking to the police chief, the mass, his group of police chiefs that get together, were all considering this yesterday as to what their course of action will be.
It
because
sounds
they
like
were
they have to
very
ta-
unhappy with it.
Yeah, I think they have to do it as a group, like the whole state. We'll have to sue them, I would assume, yeah.
Depends on
Manner.
what the polls show in the elections, I guess,
Right.
whether, what the positions
It's
will
a
be.
very complicated issue. There's a lot of interest groups involved.
Yeah. I guess we're done. Great, thanks very much. We got a lot of stuff done
Need
tonight.
a bunch of signatures from you folks.
Yes,
Thank you.
before we leave.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.